So when I was younger, much younger at this point as it appears, in the summers we used to spend a lot of our time walking beans. And some of you know what I'm talking about, those of you with a rural background. It's something they don't do today, but basically it is walking row by row through a bean field and pulling every weed that you see. A little tedious. But one of the great things about walking beans is when you finish a field, and usually there's a crew, there might be 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 of you. When you finish a field and you turn and you look back and you see a bean field with 0 weeds, it's a little bit like perfection. Take a little pride in that. And then maybe, as you're leaving that field and you're passing other fields, you might notice that, wow, in that field there's quite a few weeds. And you might make a quick judgment about the crew that cleaned that field or the farmer. Maybe they were a little careless or lazy. It seems that it's really easy to judge imperfection in others. You know, we heard this gospel. We heard 3 parables. But the first one that Jesus explains, the wheat and the weeds. And maybe as you were listening to that, you were thinking about your life and thinking about what are the weeds? Or maybe who are the weeds? Those people that we tend to think of that are maybe difficult, challenging. Maybe people that have hurt us in the past. But maybe the question we should ask is, are we the weeds or are we the wheat? I can't answer that question for you, but I can answer that question for me, because the answer is yes. We are both the weeds and the wheat. We have areas of our lives, likely, where we've invited God to change us, to transform us. But if you're like me, there's other areas of our lives where we're not quite willing to surrender to God. I feel like I need to control this. I can't fully depend on God. Or this is an area of my life that I'm very embarrassed of. And I don't want to invite God into that. But because we are both the weeds and the wheat, this gospel is great news. Because remember last week when Father talked about the sower of the seeds and how God is so generous that He planted seeds in places that it was so unlikely to grow. And here in this gospel, we hear about God's great patience. His great patience with you and with me. That with His grace and over time, we can hopefully get rid of more and more of those weeds in our life, so that we can produce more fruit. God is patient with our imperfections. I had a friend share with me recently about a loved one that had passed too soon. And they talked about this loved one, and they had a very challenging life, a difficult life, many, many struggles. And many of these struggles were self-induced. And so, as you might imagine, in a case like that, a lot of people had written this individual off. They probably thought he was too many weeds. But she didn't. She continued to love him, imperfections and all. And she said, I knew him well, and for all I knew, he really had no interest in faith or spirituality or God. And yet 2 days before he died, he said to her, I can't wait to meet Jesus face to face. God is infinitely patient. He is always inviting us, regardless. And God never gives up. My friend in this situation was like God. So, our encouragement is to pray for the grace to embrace others' imperfections, to love them, and to patiently endure imperfections in others, and maybe especially in ourselves.